the third commandment wants us to reflect on the Sabbath day. Keep Sunday holy, as we normally say. When we look at the third commandment, therefore, it is talking to us about the Sabbath. We know that right from the beginning of creation, we are told that God made heaven, God made the earth, God made the seas, God made everything. And that after 6 days, he rested on the seventh day, the Sabbath day. According to what the church teaches us, therefore, the Sabbath day is a day that is holy to the Lord. And why is it holy to the Lord? The Sabbath day is holy to the Lord because the Lord himself did not work on the Sabbath day. The Sabbath day at the same time is a day of rest. And why is it a day of rest? Because after God did all he had to do, he rested. He rested. And I think it is important for us to also note that as far as the Sabbath day is concerned, it is also a day in which the Israelites were trying to commemorate, to remember what God had done to them when they were in slavery in Egypt, how God had liberated them, how God had made them to cross the Red Sea and to be freed from the hands of the king that was disturbing them. Of course, as far as the Sabbath day is concerned, we also have to understand it as a sign of the irrevocable covenant that God established with his people. So when we are talking about the Sabbath day, what should we remember? When we are talking about the Sabbath day, we are remembering that it's a day that is holy. We are remembering that it's a day that God rested. When we are talking about the Sabbath, we are also remembering the fact that it's a day in which the Israelites were remembering how God accompanied them in their difficulties, in their sufferings, and freed them out of the hands of the king of Egypt. And at the same time, when we are talking about the Sabbath day, we are also remembering the irrevocable covenant that God had established with the Israelites. Now, God stands before us like a model, like an example that we have to follow. And of course, that example is what? God stands in front of us as somebody who works, a very hard-working God, and who works continuously. And that is why he was able to create the world, the heavens, the earth, the sea, and all the other good things that he made. Which means that as human beings, we must learn from the attitude of God. If our God worked and was able to create the world, if you read the story of creation, then we too as humans, we should be able to work and work in order to see to it that we continue to further this work of creation. So as far as God is concerned, there is no room for laziness. As far as God is concerned, we have to learn that he's somebody who did not just fold his hands and sat somewhere, but that he worked in order to make sure that we have what we have in the world today. Another thing we have to learn from God is the fact that after God worked, he rested. Rest, which is some of the things that disturb some of us who hardly rest. We think that we can work and work more than God. We think that if God worked and rested, we can work and have no rest. So that's the challenge that we are having today, that we have to emulate God by working and at the same time by making sure that we have time to rest. We cannot work and work and work and work and have no rest. And that is why if you look at many nations, you look at even the church, there is room that people should have holidays. Holidays is meant for you to rest. There are rooms and provisions that people can have off days and have some period to rest after they have worked and worked and worked. And I think it is just but normal, it is just but just that when we work, we should be able to have time to rest. And that we do not spend our whole lives working and working and working without creating time to rest. Sometimes we think that when we create time to rest, then we are not doing God favor because he wants us always to be working. That's not true. Instead, when we create time to rest, we are following the example that God himself gave us so that we should be able to have some time to gain energy back, to gain the strength that we need in order to continue to serve him. Now, as far as the Sabbath day is concerned, the Sabbath was a day that was kept aside for people to praise God, to worship him, and at the same time, to make sure that they remember all the wonders that he has done in their lives as far as creation was concerned. Yes, my dear brothers and sisters, the Sabbath day as a day of rest is also meant to let us abstain from what we call the servitude of work, or what we can also call the worship of money. Some people, insofar as they have work that they can get money, they work round the clock. You see somebody may be a civil servant, you work in the morning from 8 o'clock, maybe you finish work at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, then you look for another work from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock, you go and do part-time somewhere, then look for another work again from 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the morning. Then you spend your whole life working, and no rest. Maybe it is not very common in our Cameroonian and African community, but it's very, very common in Europe and America, where most of our children are. You see some of our children, they work round the clock in order to survive. One person is having 3 jobs, 4 jobs, and they have no time to rest. And they spend all their times moving from this job to the other job, and at the end of the day, they may even lose their lives because they do not create time to rest. And why are they working? Because they want to get money. They become slaves of money. The little you work, you cannot eat. But you want to continue to work and to work and to work. And at the end of the day, even the money that you have will not be able to sustain you, or you'll not be able to make good use of it. So when we talk about the Sabbath day, therefore, we are referring to that day of rest. And the Sabbath day, as far as the New Testament is concerned, has been replaced by what we call Sunday. Sunday is the day of the resurrection. The first day of the week is Sunday. The 8th day of the week is Sunday. So Sunday, which is the day of the resurrection, the day that Christ rose from the dead, is a day in which the church has given us so that we should be able to respect it, we should be able to honor it as the Sabbath day, which means that Sunday has replaced the Sabbath day. And that is why for us Christians, because of the resurrection of Christ, we do not talk more about the Sabbath day again. We talk about Sunday because Sunday is the day of the resurrection. Sunday is the day that has replaced the Sabbath day. And of course, Sunday is referred to as the first day of the week, of the new creation, as opposed to the Sabbath. And as far as Sunday is concerned, we know that on Sunday, it is a day that the church invites us to be able to rest. It's a day that the church invites us to worship God, and to worship God not in our private rooms or in our private homes. It's a day in which the church invites us to worship God in church. The worship we give to God in our private homes cannot be replaced by the worship that we give to God when we come to church as a community of believers who participate in the celebration of the liturgy. And that is why the very first law of the church, there's that section of the Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph 2041 to 2046, that gives us the laws of the church. The very first law of the church is that we should keep Sunday holy. And what does it mean to keep Sunday holy? It means that we should be able to go to church, to participate in the celebration of the Eucharist, at the same time to make sure that after that we come back home, we have some time to rest with our families, with our relatives. We have time maybe to go to our social gatherings and meetings and socialize with other people and relate with other people. So it is important for us, therefore, to know that we have the moral obligation to make sure that on Sundays, which is our own Sabbath now, we try to give God the worship that is his due.